5 signs your subconscious wants to chat. 1. Perhaps the most obvious and recognizable sign that everyone is familiar with is anxiety. So specifically physical anxiety. So let's go over the difference. So if you're having a really stressful day and you have a lot of mental clutter, a lot of just hectic negative things going on, to have mental anxiety about that is normal and is probably associated with what you're experiencing that day. On the other hand, bodily anxiety. So if you're having a perfectly normal day and something random happens, not even something scary or upsetting, but just something triggers these physical symptoms in you. So for example, an adrenaline rush, feeling kind of shaky, jittery, your heart rate speeds up, you start to suddenly have racing thoughts. You may feel butterflies in your stomach. That's another big one. So like right in your solar plexus area, that could be subconscious content starting to get stirred around. And the thing about that is you're trusting your body's reaction. If your body's reacting, it doesn't matter if your mind is calm, if you're mentally, if nothing's going on. Something in your waking life triggered that bodily reaction, and you're probably not going to know what it is right off the bat consciously. So bringing us to point 2, symbolic dreams, or almost remembering a dream but not quite. So if you, for example, wake up at around 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. and you just like bolt awake, like you're just suddenly awake out of nowhere, and you have a very vivid memory of the dream you just had, and it's really specific, and especially if it's really symbolic. So it's one thing if you watch a movie and then you go to sleep and you have like a dream that sort of, it's sort of associated with the topics that were being discussed in the movie. That's not necessarily subconscious content. That might just be your mind sort of running on what it was experiencing right before you went to sleep, right? It's just kind of continuing that thought pattern. Now, subconscious content is different in that it tends to be a lot more symbolic. So, like I said, if you wake up in the middle of the night or even in the morning and right away you remember, like you dreamed of a snake or a number, like something really specific that doesn't have any obvious connection to anything. A lot of times when we wake up or right before we go to sleep at night, we'll have these, it's like you remember, that you dreamed, and you might remember a sliver of it, like a familiar feeling. That is subconscious content that is still mostly buried, so you have just enough awareness to know that it was there. 3, flashbacks. So whether you're about to go to sleep at night and you just start remembering, usually it's like unpleasant things, not from your day, but usually from the past. Another time you can have a really poignant flashback is in meditation. So any sort of meditative or spiritual practice that you're doing, even if it's not meditation, just something that you do to quiet your mind and become still. If a flashback comes up, that is significant. Continue whatever practice you're doing. Try to keep your mind fairly quiet and in the background while you keep tuning into this flashback. Your subconscious is especially relevant when it's not something that you consciously remembered. If you're in a meditation and you have a flashback to something that happened when you were 6, and a lot of times it's not even like a mental memory, it's just a sensory memory. So you might remember like reaching and touching something, but you were at a really young age. So sight, smell, that sort of thing. These flashbacks tend to be significant. The fact that your conscious mind would have never remembered it otherwise, that's also a clue that this isn't something that's just popping up consciously, it's coming from deep. 4, sudden changes in mental health. So as we talked about already, anxiety, that's a really common indicator, but a sudden change in mental health, again, with no obvious reasoning. So it's not like you just lost your job and you feel depressed. That's just, that's a natural reaction to a difficult event. With subconscious material, you will have a sudden change in mental health, and it will be very foggy as to why it's happening. So suddenly starting to experience more anxiety than usual. Suddenly, your life's going great, and then you just hit rock bottom and you're just depressed and no one understands why. Sudden burst of anger, just rising up in you in a seemingly unrelated situation. So you'll start to see a pattern here. We're looking at things that have no obvious, immediate cause. Because subconscious content is buried so deep, it is below your consciousness, that means you're not going to immediately understand what it's about. 5, this is the most interesting one that people really, I think, tend to shun or not catch on to or kind of dismiss as just something else, but recurring obstacles and crises. So if you're in a crisis, the word crisis literally means sifting. So you're like sorting through something. If you have the same really difficult thing happen over and over and over, like in a couple week or couple year span of time, this is really when you want to start paying attention. When it's getting, when the situation is so loud, it's having a direct impact on your physical experience, not even just your mental, but your outward reality, what's happening in your life. This is when you really want to start paying attention. So I had this happen, was it last year, a couple years ago, where I got so many flat tires for all different reasons. I think I got at least maybe like three in like a 6-month period, or maybe 3 to 4 within the year. And they all happened pretty close to each other. So it was just, by the third one, it was just so obvious what the message was. These ones are actually really helpful because they're getting very literal at that point. At that point, it's like this material is coming to the surface and it's speaking to you. So whatever you keep having to experience that you don't want to experience, for me with the flat tires, it was slowing down. So I kept finding myself in these situations where I had to just sit and stop and wait, basically to get a ride or to get someone to come fix the tire or something. And it was just that sitting and waiting that I couldn't stand, and I kept trying to escape that. And so that's the thing, you're gonna be resistant to what's trying to come through, because it's something, if it weren't something that you were resisting, it wouldn't really be subconscious. It would just kind of like float to the surface, and it would be conscious. You would know about it. But it's usually something you don't want to do, or you have a negative association, you have a negative belief about what's gonna happen if you have to do that thing. So in my case with the tires slowing down, there was a lot of negative associations with what's going to happen to me if I do that. I can't do that. It's not possible. I'm not allowed. All this stuff is just being, flush to the surface. So with these obstacles and these crisis situations, that's when you're getting a lot of good information from the subconscious. So if you've experienced any of these, all of these, leave a comment below, let me know your experience or your insights, or if you have any other points. So these are just 5 signs. You might have your own little nuanced ways of knowing that your subconscious is kind of in direct communication. You can subscribe to this channel or join the mailing list at existbetter.co.